All right, welcome back, and I want to apologize. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back up and running, and we left off at public comment. Autumn Carsey, I think you were speaking. I didn't know if you wanted to please come back up, and we'll restart your 3 minutes for the inconvenience. Throw in an extra couple 30 seconds or so just because of the inconvenience as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Do you want me to continue from where I left off, or?
You decide.
Okay. I'll just continue from where I left off. So a number of the more extreme recommendations, which some have previously been rejected by this board, resurfaced following the appointment of Commissioner Monica Rosenthal, a founding member of the CAP group. During most recent Planning Commission meeting, Commissioner Rosenthal acknowledged that she was aware of this board's prior decision to not revisit the farmland protection zone expansion, and yet stated her personal interest in advancing it anyway. She also proposed additional restrictions, including required setbacks from homeschools. This raises serious concerns about potential conflicts of interest. Commissioner Rosenthal has publicly opposed several cannabis projects and has signed CAP letters that advocate for the very initiatives that are now being reconsidered. It is not appropriate for someone with a history of public opposition to cannabis to cast decisive votes on an ordinance recommendations that directly impact the future of this industry. On the farmland protection zone, the proposed expansion of the FPZ would be nothing short of catastrophic. When I did an overlay of all the existing farms in Lake County, I found it would render approximately 37% of this county's currently approved farms ineligible, many of whom are unaware of this proposal and therefore would be unable to advocate for themselves. This is not a small policy adjustment. It is a wholesale dismantling of 1/3 of illegal cannabis here in Lake County. The setbacks and public lands and homeschools I'd like to discuss. During the August 4th, 2020 Board of Supervisors meeting, item 7.2 clarified the 1,000-foot setback requirement from public lands for commercial cannabis cultivation. At timestamp 43450, the board explicitly stated that the 1,000-foot setback would apply only to developed public lands, such as authorized trailheads, campsites, visitors centers. Undeveloped, inaccessible public lands would require only a 100-foot setback. Scott De Leon confirmed that the land must be developed, and Supervisor Sabatier moved to overlay the national trail maps and identify developed, designated, approved trails. This board unanimously supported this clarification. Despite this, the final ordinance language is vague and has resulted in inconsistent interpretations. Some applicants have received approvals within these setbacks, while others have been challenged. This ambiguity creates a legal risk for the county and uncertainty for applicants. I respectfully request that the ordinance be amended to restore its original intent and setbacks only be applied to developed public lands. Further, I strongly oppose the inclusion of homeschools in this list of setback uses. It would allow anyone opposing a neighboring cannabis project to declare a homeschool as a tool for obstruction. This is not policy, this is a weaponization of regulation. During COVID, I enrolled my own child in homeschool. It took me 2 days. There is no oversight. There is no criteria that you need to meet in order to have that designation. Lastly, I would like to respectfully request that all existing cannabis businesses, including cultivation, processing, and manufacture and retail, be considered eligible for renewal and recognized as legal non-conforming uses under the updated ordinance. Many of these businesses have operated responsibly and compliantly for years, contributing jobs, infrastructure, investment, and millions of dollars in tax revenue to the county. A business that has demonstrated success and commitment to the community over the course of a decade should be allowed to continue without fear of being regulated out through shifting land use policy. These operators have helped build the foundation of the local cannabis economy and deserve a fair path forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll get back to you. I know that you spoke already, right, on this one?
Yes.
We'll go forward with the folks that haven't spoke, and then we'll come back.
Good afternoon. Jim Comstock. We live 19955 Grange Road, Middletown. My family began ag in California in 1841. That's 7 generations ago. 5 generations have been in Lake County and 4 on our existing ranch. My parents came there in 1943, 82 years ago. And I'm 75 years old. I'm not quite as old as them being there, but ag changes over time greatly. Originally, our ranch had walnuts, then pears, cattle. We had a commercial herd and a registered herd. Sheep, we ran over 900 head of ewes, fed a lot of coyotes. We grew hay. My dad trained horses. We grazed cattle. We looked long and hard at ways to make ag work on our ranch. And we always had to subsidize the ranch by working something else. Always worked a second job because ag is tough. And that's okay. We don't mind that. We tried to get into the Williamson Act to try to help something with the taxes, and there are no longer any applications being accepted for the Williamson Act. We're not trying to make some great profit. We're not some outside person coming in trying to exploit and take something over. We're a long time farming operation. We want to try to cover the taxes and the insurance, and to do that, we need to do something different than what we've been doing. There are things that could be done that would have much higher impact, and we came down to the best option was cannabis. We've had entertained, there have been no offers put our way for profitable grape leases. In the 1970s, part of our ranch was leased for grapes for several years that were never developed. We are next door to Sutter Homes Vineyard on Grange Road. Know those people personally. They said that is the most difficult vineyard they have for the hottest summers and the coldest winters. So grapes are not particularly good right in our area, so it comes back to cannabis. We are what would be considered a legacy farm. We've been here a long time. Our goal is to continue this for the future, for future generations of our family. We have multiple lifetimes of ag, and we want to continue it. We want to protect the farmland. We don't want it to be developed into something else. Our ranch is the largest remaining intact family-owned portion of the Gwinnett Land Grant. I think that's pretty significant, and we want to keep it that way. And this is a lifeline to preserve farmland in Lake County, which we want to do. We want to keep it just what it is, a family ranch. We love our land. We know every square inch of it. We've been there for a long time. We put our heart and soul into it. If I reach 3 minutes,
Yes.
I apologize for that. We put our blood, sweat, and tears into it. I respectfully request that you consider the opportunities for ag to continue and cannabis be parting of the ag. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, come on up.
Okay, my name is Marshall Comstock. You just heard from my dad. So I just want to reiterate kind of what he was saying. But from my perspective, I'm the next generation. My brother, my sister, my 3 cousins, we're all the next generation of that ranch that he's talking about. And for my entire life, our ranch has been unable to break even without secondary income. So what I've come to understand about ranching is that usually there's 2 kinds of ranches. You have a family ranch that's not easy to maintain. It's a struggle. And then you have ranches that are usually owned by wealthy landowners, wealthy people that came in that have independent income that bought that land that can subsidize it. We're not that family. And as I look to the future, the last thing that I want to do is be responsible for our family losing that ranch. That would break my heart. I think it would break the heart of my kids, of my siblings' kids, of my cousins. It would break our hearts to lose that. What we feel is, a land that we love and that we want to preserve. And as my dad said, the best option for us has been cannabis. So we get nervous when we hear things about, farmland protection, which would exclude us from being able to explore different options. You have to be able to diversify, to adapt, to survive. Our ranch has grown several different kinds of crops. There's a reason we don't do pears there anymore. There's a reason that grapes haven't worked out there for us. This is a crop that can work for us, that can give us the ability to maintain the ranch and to be able to preserve it for future generations. So please keep that in mind while you make your decision, specifically when it comes to the farmland protection. That would ice us out, and effectively, who's it protecting? You're not protecting local ranchers by adding in those kinds of restrictions. You're hamstringing us. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. Jennifer Smith. I'm a local cultivator, former president of the LCCA, and a member of the task force. I just want to talk about the task force efforts for a second here. As mentioned, it was a 6-month project that turned into nearly 2.5 years. It was a very open and at times informal process. And so for 2.5 years, everybody was given a chance to come in and speak. And I just want to point out that because you're not agreed with doesn't mean that you weren't heard. There was plenty of time and opportunity for people to bring up their concerns. We had members from every opinion on cannabis, as well as members that came from varying parts of the county, and we made great strides towards our ultimate goal, which was to align local policy with state policy. To add at what I feel like is the 11th hour, additional exclusion zones that don't count, that aren't the same as the state, seems disingenuous. Particularly worried about homeschools because, as mentioned, that can be set up in 2 days. It's varying, it's transient, and it's to affect somebody's business plan and business model based upon a simple objection, personal objection, isn't right. We need to get back to land use rights and remember that cannabis is an ag product in this county and in this state and should be treated as such. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Dennis Hunter. I just kind of off the cuff wanted to come and make a few comments. My company was involved in a cultivation here. A few years back, we got pushed out because of the farmland protection zone. Probably for the 3 years we operated there, I think we probably paid $350,000 in taxes and invested a lot of money into that farm, and then had to basically stop operations there. And I just see, I just want to put this in perspective. I see some of the comments, and with it being the smell nuisance and water usage and a lot of these things that we're talking about with cannabis, but you could be talking about hemp right now, and it would have a right to farm, and you wouldn't be able to exclude them from the corridor. You wouldn't be able to not have them not grow 1,000 acres right here because they have the right to farm it. The smell or be near a homeschool or whatever it would be, you wouldn't have that. You would have the same smell, the odor, the same usage of water and things. But here, regulated cannabis, we jump through a lot more hoops, and now you have a lot more things that you want to exclude, but you wouldn't be able to do it with hemp. And I just want to make sure that's in perspective, that you're doing this to a regulated crop that is providing a ton of tax revenue and is jumping through so many hoops through the state. It's very hard to operate a cannabis farm. There's so much paperwork with the state and so many regulations that we have to do that if you're still in business here, you're a really good operator, and you're having to go through a lot of these steps. And I've been growing cannabis for 3 decades, and before there was legal cannabis, and living up in the hills, and a lot of the cannabis farmers, we had to deal with our neighbors, and we had to work with them. And I can tell you, most cannabis farmers really are good neighbors and want to be part of society and be a benefit to their communities. So just want to put those things into perspective, and hopefully you guys are looking at all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone that hasn't commented already that would like to come up? And then I know that we have 2. I want to let the Zooms go through, and then I'll call on you to come back up. Go ahead and, Rebecca, if you can unmute.
Wonderful. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So on behalf of the Lake County Farm Bureau, I'd like to thank the Community Development Department staff for developing these recommendations and bringing them before you for input at this stage. We recognize that the effort that has gone into this process so far, and as the ordinance begins to take shape, LCFB remains committed to staying engaged. We look forward to reviewing the first draft and appreciate any opportunity to provide public comment along the way. We also look forward to seeing the draft brought through the Agricultural Advisory Committee for discussion and input from the broader ag community. Open dialogue will be essential to creating a balanced and workable ordinance for Lake County. I would also like to take a moment to emphasize a sentiment shared by another task force member. The process involved in bringing forward these recommendations from the task force was messy at times and involved a lot of give and take, which is reflected in the recommendations that you see before you. This included all recommendations, including those around FPZ. So I think it's important to keep in mind that the task force was very thorough in their recommendations. And like I mentioned, there was lots of give and take involved in this process. Members of the community were welcomed at every meeting to provide public input, and a lot of time was spent on these recommendations. So I think that there should be heavy consideration given to that, especially those recommendations that were made regarding FPZ. Additionally, I welcome the opportunity to speak directly with any of you should there be any questions or areas where I might be of help. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, yep, there you go. If you can unmute, and we'll start your 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. My name is Angela Amaral, representing Double Eagle Ranch Property Owners Association. For over 5 years, Double Eagle has been asking for a simple revision to either the online exclusion zone map or to the application intake form to recognize the Double Eagle area as having CCRs with restrictions for all commercial activities. The exclusion zone map provided online by the county, while stated clearly that it is not a legal document, continues to be used by potential buyers when making their purchasing decisions. Double Eagle has taken several steps to ensure the buyers are fully aware of the restrictions on commercial activity within the POA. One example of this is during demand letter requests from title companies. At that point in the process, Double Eagle has asked the title company to notify the buyer and obtain acknowledgement as to the commercial activity clause in the CCRs. While this has been helpful, it is also a little late in the process as the buyer is already in escrow. Additionally, this step does not apply to cash purchases that typically do not go through escrow, and there is no notification to the POA. Over the years, Double Eagle has been told there would be ample opportunities to have these concerns addressed, including the public outreach meetings conducted under former Director Darby, and then during the Cannabis Ordinance Task Force. The task force was not amenable to any changes in this regard. After the Cannabis Task Force, we were told the next opportunities would be at the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors meetings. Double Eagle has consistently requested these changes and did so again at the most recent Planning Commission meeting on June 12th during the Cannabis Ordinance Revision discussion. Double Eagle is respectfully requesting once again that this concern be addressed. While we understand the county does not enforce CCRs, we feel the county should not be undermining them either. CCRs are a legally binding agreement between the property owner and the association upon purchase. As an example, for many projects requiring a permit in Hidden Valley HOA, CDD requires plans stamped and approved by the HOA before an application will even be accepted. Once again, Double Eagle respectfully requests that the county revise the process for commercial applications within our area by either amending the exclusion zone map online or to include POA approval before an application is accepted to prevent loss of time, finances, and resources by the applicant, county staff, and the POA. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Angela. All right, if you can unmute, iPhone XS Max.
My name is Skylar Layla on Pillsbury Family Farms. And I wanted to speak up about 3 proposed rules by staff's recommendation. The first one, a warrant check conducted by the Lake County Sheriff's Office for all the applicants and the property owners. Any active warrant could result in the automatic suspension of the application. And I just wanted to remind the board that a warrant is not a conviction. It is not a proof of wrongdoing. It is simply merely an allegation, often unverified and sometimes often issued in error. Suspending somebody's license on that basis would bypass due process, and it punishes people without a trial and without a hearing. And the second proposed rule is to suspend the cultivation applications if the background checks reveal any active warrant. This takes it a step further, and it treats any illegal entanglement, any resolved ones, as grounds for an automatic disqualification. The California law is clear that California supports rehabilitation and non-exclusion. We have the Fair Chance Act that limits how and when the criminal history can be considered in licensing decisions. And let's remind you that the equity program by the DCC was built specifically to bring formerly criminalized people into licensing compliance. And furthermore, I would also like to highlight that staff's recommendation to cap the use of the opt-out provisions only 2 times creates serious issues for farms like mine that have already invested substantial time and financial resources into defending my permit. This limitation unfairly penalizes operators who face unique or ongoing challenges, especially smaller equity farms. By reducing the flexibility and increasing the risk of non-forced operation, for us, the opt-out has been essential for the survival of the regulatory delays and the legal disputes and the administrative factors that have been beyond my farm's control. Imposing a cap feels like an intentional barrier that pushes compliant farms like mine out towards extinction. And also, I would also like to highlight that I agree with Supervisor Pyska that hydrology reports need to be required for new and oncoming cannabis projects. And I would also like to touch on the premises versus the area issue, being as my farm has once applied for hemp and have successfully applied for hemp once and have received the hemp license before we got issued our cannabis license. That would have been something that could be utilized, but as of right now, my farm is unable to utilize that, even though my farm has already once been qualified for hemp. But due to the fact that there is issues with CDD's understanding of premises versus area, that has caused some confliction. So as of right now, my current understanding of the ag is that I cannot have hemp in my lower parcel because CDD has an issue with cannabis. And because CDFA says that there is no required setback, I can technically have it. I just have to make sure that they are separate with the proper signage. So I really would like for the board to take a look at that and reconsider that. Mulayham.
All right, thank you. Clay's iPad, if you can unmute.
Hello, Clay Shannon here. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we could hear you.
Thanks for listening. I'm a longtime Lake County farmer and businessman in Lake County. I have been farming in the county since 1996. For nearly 30 years, we have worked to promote this region across the nation and 30 different countries. We sell wine all over the world through more than 20 brands and 75 products that proudly bear the name Lake County. This county is a rich farming heritage, one we should preserve and honor. I'm personally committed to doing so by building a farming education center currently at the Mercantile on Highway 29, which will invest in the future of agriculture in Lake County and create lasting careers for the next generation. I'm not a cannabis advocate, but I am an advocate for farmers and landowners. As a businessman, I understand that creating a sustainable business means allowing farmers the flexibility to diversify their operations. We've heard that earlier today. That should include any legal crop. The voters of this county have affirmed that more than once. Stripping landowners of their property rights through the unnecessary regulation will not help our economy or our ag community. Rather than trying to hold back change, we should be asking how Lake County can remain competitive in the agriculture sector. Over the years, I've focused much of my work on enhancing soil health and fertility. Today, I'm developing organic fertility solutions for grape production and have been approached by some cannabis farmers interested in those same organic and regenerative inputs. Like any serious farmer, to remain in the forefront of their industry and make a living, They are striving to improve their methods by using natural materials instead of synthetics, which are safer for the environment, the soil, and human consumption. All existing legal farms that pay taxes in Lake County should be grandfathered in under current non-conforming use provisions when their permits come up for renewal. We should not impose new setback requirements that drive out the very people working hard to comply and do things right. Farms are expensive and time-consuming to build. They are always a long-term investment. Most have taken years of planning, permitting, significant capital to bring online. Pulling the rug out from under would not only be unfair, but economically damaging to the region. Looking ahead, cannabis appellations offer a real opportunity to further elevate Lake County as a premier growing region. This industry generated $3.4 million in tax revenue for the county last year alone. That is not something we can afford to overlook. We need to keep our doors open to opportunity, not regulate our farmers out of business. And most importantly, the majority of states in our country are allowing the usage of cannabis, hemp products, or both. And along with them, we need to recognize that our younger generations all over the world, and definitely the nation, are embracing this agriculture crop, whether it's to work in the industry or to
Mr. Shannon,
use
if you can wrap up.
these things. We have a great county with great people, but must find ways to preserve our ag heritage while keeping the interests of future generations in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. You can unmute, Peter, and your 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm speaking in two different voices today, so I'll start with Cap. I'm involved with the Lake County Community Action Project, and we're very, very proud to be so, and want to thank everybody involved in the ordinance process, including the folks who served on COTF, for developing an agenda that's in front of the board today that I think is more complete than it was when we arrived on the scene. I want to emphasize that CAP is a public voice. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we speak in the voice of the public. We have opinions and we have different views on things and policies. What we're trying to do is promote a better policy solution at large for Lake County. I want to make one comment about an earlier discussion around Monica Rosenthal's participation on the Planning Commission. She was appointed by a duly elected official. She's serving the public. We're proud of her. We thank her for doing it. She may have a difference in opinion policy-wise than your own, but I do not believe she's in any capacity conflicted, and this was verified, I believe, at the Planning Commission itself by the county attorney at the time that issue was brought up by the same individual there. I would point out that on CODIF, there were several individuals who participated in CODIF from the industry who did not meet the FPPC guidelines for conflict of interest. So I continue to ask that the board give due consideration to that concern. Now I'm going to close out CAP and switch horses, I should say, and talk about the Lucchetti Ranch. So I'm speaking on behalf of the ranch, not CAP now. Just a couple of comments on the ranch. We're directly next door to the Comstocks. We're in a conflict with them over their cannabis application. We don't wish to be. We'd like to get along with the Comstocks, but I want to say the following. We run a successful and profitable cattle business next door. It's not a failure. We don't subsidize it. It pays for itself. It's an organic beef production facility. Our concern about the Comstock's cannabis application, which I believe will be duly addressed by the type of ordinance considerations that are under review right now, two of them in particular, is farmland protection zone. We believe we should be treated equitably to others in the county. We are prime farmland, and we wish to be treated equitably. We're asking the board for due consideration. Second, this hydrology water issue is serious. We're impacted down in the South County. We're impacted in the locale that defines our two ranches, the Comstocks and Luchettis. Done a lot of work on this, spent a lot of time and money on it, and you'll be hearing more from us as we go along. But I want to again emphasize the importance of the water hydrology issue and refinements in the ordinance to how that issue is handled. I have several concerns about how the water issue that stands between us can affect the profitability and the effectiveness of our business plan. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Joni, you can unmute. And we'll start.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I really appreciate it. As you can see, my name is Joni Henderson. I'm submitting comment specifically regarding homeschool. May I give you a little background here? I and my neighbor spoke against a proposed cannabis operation in our neighborhood at more than 5 community development meetings. I came away from these experiences with serious concerns about the lack of regard for the public safety, health, and well-being. I have serious concerns about the transparency and the regard for repeated requests for address of communities' concerns and grievances. I have serious concerns of how our most vulnerable community members are being disregarded and devalued in this process. I've submitted an email on these items, but I'd like to go over them, please, right now. Please consider the following. In my situation, because of ongoing serious health concerns, I homeschool both of my children. I'm not doing this as some underhanded way of sneakily being against a grow operation that tried to come in our neighborhood. These are serious concerns, and please don't paint all of homeschoolers in that way. I homeschool both of my children. My son is a 12-year-old and is a cancer survivor, having undergone 4 years of intensive chemotherapy. He was diagnosed and began treatment at the beginning of his kindergarten year. He has ongoing health issues that we routinely go to Oakland Children's Hospitals to seek. These health issues, a grow operation less than 400 feet from our backyard where they play, this would have serious significant impacts on us. We ask consideration for the following. Please recognize within the county's policies and ordinances that homeschools are acknowledged by the state of California as, quote, a species of private school, recognizing homeschools within the county's policies and ordinances as a school would afford homeschool children the same protections children that are able to attend in-person schools, public schools, daycares that they receive. Please consider inclusion of at least 1,000-foot setback from homeschools with a current private school affidavit on file with the state of California. Homeschoolers are not just this fly-by-night thing. We are real, and we do it for a reason. In our experience with the CDD, the cannabis permittees are not following the current ordinances or CEQA requirements. Are not these environmental quality standards put in place to protect the environment, to protect the health, well-being of our community, our children? CDD is not performing its duties specified in the ordinances. Conditions of approval for compliance and ensuring code violations are addressed is not occurring. They are turning blind eyes to absolute falsehoods being put in their documentation, complete disregard for the
You can wrap up.
process.
Go ahead.
An ordinance is of little value if adherence is not enforced. Odor issue is something of a concern. Please recognize this with homeschoolers. What does the overstimulation do for some of these children? Many people homeschool because this is a safe, workable environment for these children that have not had an
Ma'am,
environment.
if you can wrap up, please. Your 3 minutes is up.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't hear you. Please consider homeschools are real. We're doing the best we can for our children. They're succeeding in these homeschool environments. We're not simply opportunists trying to use a loophole or however it was characterized. That's not it at all. Please don't think that. These are children that need a safe
All right.
environment.
We've heard you say that.
Provides.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next. Okay. We'll still leave. There you go. All right, Charlene, if you can unmute.
Yes, hi, Charlene with Camp Indian Meadows. At the time that I did my permit, I had a neighbor who opposed, of course. And I feel the homeschool issue, how are we going to define a real homeschool like the lady who just shared with the kids there with the disability versus somebody who's going to do a 2-day application and try to find some niece or nephew or somebody to claim they're schooling them right next door to the grow? How is the county going to help us define what's true and what's not true? It is definitely a conflict of interest. If the it's not a conflict, but I don't know what to call it. But I have vendetta. It's a vendetta. We call it an Italian vendetta. If he doesn't like me, he's going to try to do everything to try to close me down. So how is the county going to help us secure that? They said it only takes 2 days to get the permit. It's not really supervised. And how are you guys going to protect us? This is hundreds, I mean, millions, actually, millions of dollars that we put into infrastructure in these grows with different ordinances. Now you guys are trying to change it on us. I would like to support it not being changed for the existing businesses and give it a reconsideration on the new businesses coming in, because this county needs the money and all of us are trying to survive up here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, they could say anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Lewis, if you can unmute.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Lewis Lincoln. I am a equities retail license holder, and I would just like to make the recommendations that the board move forward as fast as possible in aligning with the state, and don't add any new added hurdles to this already complicated process. And having more grows and supporting more grows is great. I didn't hear anything else about any other aspect of the industry, like manufacturers or retailers. So this cannabis ordinance, is it a growing ordinance, or are you including all licensee holders in what updates in this ordinance are coming about, like consumption lounges, which we are still waiting on? And if, like planning said, they hope to get it by the end of this year. I'm like, we've been waiting a long time for a simple opportunity to utilize our license to the fullest extent. So there are other aspects of this cannabis ordinance, and it affects businesses down the chain, right? You got the growers, the manufacturers, the distros, and then the retail, and it all falls back on the customer. So all these things that we're trying to impose and will affect the end customer and their access to safe products. And so I would like to recommend that the board moves forward faster, and not add any other hurdles to what is an already hard, complicated process through many agencies that these owners have to go through. And you already have zoning laws and lands that establish where you can do things, and changing them doesn't sound like a great idea. So that is what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open it in the chambers for another 30 seconds. Is that enough? Or
maybe a minute and a half.
I can give you a minute.
Thank you, Board. Just some point of clarifications. First on the homeschool. Monica Rosenthal did not vote for the homeschool recommendation in the Planning Commission. She and Commissioners Chavez voted against it. It was Zoller, Fields, and Brown. So that was a misrepresentation of the fact by a previous commenter. The homeschool was never on any agenda for the COTF. I brought it to the attention of my public representative, and he never brought it on the agenda, so it was never discussed. With regard to parks, 3096, which I know Monsieur Sabatier worked on, it's very clear. It says, in addition to hiking and biking and whatever, it says, additionally, comma, all state parks and county parks are public lands. And then it goes into definitions and says very clearly, by definition, all state parks and county parks are public lands. And then in the recording where this hearing was done, I heard it differently. I heard Mr. Sabatier mention Anderson Marsh, mention Canocti Regional Park, and mention Clear Lake State Park. Those are not completely developed parks. They are cherished for their wild space. And again, it's very clear, it's not ambiguous. All state parks and county parks are public lands. So with that, I would just like to clarify that, homeschools, I think we do have a solution in front of the board that gets around the panic and all of that about how it's going to be enforced. And as far as homeschools, they are enjoy protection from several things I've put on the public record, including strip joints, tattoo parlors, bars, you name it. There's like 9 or 10 in the public code. And you never see anyone pile on, homeschool affidavits to try to stop any of that stuff, including registered sex offenders. That doesn't happen. It's all speculative. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you'd like to come up, we'll have a minute.
Bill Wilson. First, I'd like to ask why the cannabis industry feels that their right to grow supersedes the neighborhood's right to not have the smell. For 43 years, we've lived in vineyards and walnuts, and I've never had a smell complaint. Now, all summer with a greenhouse, we are all summer getting our house filled with, our meals, it's like having skunks under the table, night and day. And the next question would be, are permits approved after a cannabis greenhouse is built or beforehand? Who checks to see that they have the amount of filters? We have, the next door neighbor has 15,000 cubic foot filter in a 270,000 cubic foot greenhouse. All of the smell is pumped out and it comes our way. So do we not have rights to not want to have smell? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come back up that hasn't spoke already? Maybe someone raise their hand in Zoom. All right. If not, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. I don't know if you wanted to address anything first, Director Turner. No? Supervisor Sabatier?
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the public input. I think things have to change, whether opening things up or whether tightening things up. We've had a chance to learn. We've seen a lot, and yeah, we've made some mistakes along the way by interpreting things incorrectly, which is one of the reasons that we came up with the Farmland Protection Zone. It was anything that is connected as a larger piece of agriculture versus an isolated piece of agriculture. And we made so many mistakes in how to interpret that we decided to make a map. And some areas weren't covered because that would have denied a lot of things that we already had passed through, and we did our best. And we worked with Brenna Sullivan at that time, worked with the previous supervisor from District 4, Rob Brown as well, District 5, Rob Brown, and got a 5-0 in order to pass that, to try and figure out how to solve the problem that we had created in misinterpreting some of that language. And if there's a need to create an exhibit for the public lands, then we should probably create an exhibit to make sure that we don't interpret public lands in a different way. So I think there's ways to solve some of these word issues in the way that we just interpret things. Right now, currently, this is one of my biggest concerns is the 200-foot setback from off-site residences, and I'm just going to kind of reword that to not my residence. If it's your residence and it's your application, you could be right in the middle of your grow for all I care. That's your residence. But if it's your neighbor's residence, I just don't think 200 feet is enough, especially when you're next to what we're allowing, which is some pretty major grows. We are known outside of Santa Barbara to be one of the larger types of grows in the area. And that's something we should think about. Is 80 acres an okay amount, especially if you have only 200 feet from a residence? So I would like to see that 200 feet at the very maximum, because if you start going too far, then you eliminate everything. But I would like to see it at least at around the 500 mark. That to me is, and negotiable, but 500 feet is what I would like to see. At this moment in time, I know you have 30 applications you're still going through, but I don't really want to get rid of the expiration date on the water board until we're done with what we have. I don't want to reopen the floodgates. I don't think it'll be a flood, but I don't really want to reopen that until we've gone through all the applications, we've really refined this new version of the ordinance before we look at opening things back up again. There's been a lot of issues with a lot of grows that have come here, and we've denied a lot of grows as far as this board, as far as appeals that have come through, and some of it has been the electrical portion of it, where people are trying to do indoor mixed light, but they're doing it in places that, in my opinion, aren't always the most appropriate, all the way out in the middle of nowhere in a very high fire hazard area. Indoor mixed light is supposed to have the filtering. If they don't have the filtering, there should be a mechanism for us to be able to work on that. Outdoor, I'll get back to outdoor. But I would love to see indoor and mixed light being brought more towards, not in our community growth boundaries, but not in the middle of nowhere where it's a danger for us to get PG&E out there and all of those things, because we should be doing what the state is also trying to do, at least for this, not trying to build in high fire areas if we don't have to. I think that's a light industrial use. That would be a better, more appropriate thing, or something along those lines. But I know that's been one of my concerns, and one of our issues that we had with one appeal was that the distance between where the closest fire district station was compared to where it would be located. So I just think that if you're going to do indoor or mixed light and you're asking for lots of extra electricity to go with that, it doesn't make sense to do that on the outskirts of our community in the high fire threat areas. I do have issues with the way people are reacting to outdoor, especially, I mean, it's like ag versus ag. Like, ag is a dirty job. It is a stinky job. Whether you have cattle, whether you have plants, whether you have dirt, you're going to have to put some amendments in your dirt. Amendments don't smell good. Amendments smell like farming. And I had that issue when, I'm probably going to use this quite often, but I had that issue with the sours, which we did deny because they had illegally propped up some buildings. But to have people say, get out of here, you stink, when you're living in an ag area, it just betrays what we're supposed to do, which is support ag. And ag comes with a certain level of smell. And I don't want to see people wanting to use ag as their place of residence where suddenly we can't do ag anymore. And so we have to figure out how to make this work. And so I want to increase the setbacks. I don't want to make it so much that it kills the potential operations. And I'd love to look at a maximum acreage. I think 80 is too much. That's a lot of water. That is a lot of plants. We are experimenting. Nobody else really does that. Maybe a maximum of 20 acres, maybe a maximum of 10. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the right point is, but we have allowed for a little bit of a test case here. And it does come with a certain smell. I wouldn't be against people doing a whole lot of animal husbandry and whatnot. That comes with a smell, but it needs to have its right setbacks and its right locations. I don't agree with the homeschool setback. I think that we're out of the community growth boundaries. We increased the setback from outside of property residences. I think we need a within the use permit ordinance, whatever it is, whether it's the minor use, major use, or a different one. We just need a hydrology update within one of those ordinances so that it covers whatever uses a lot of water. This is the process. Because before, if we're not changing the rules, today we're using hydrology reports. Yesterday, we were using 1972 well reports, and that just wasn't good enough. And I don't want us to accidentally go back. If you're not here, I want it to be in writing as to what is this process so that the next director, the next generation will follow the exact process that needs to be there. And I don't think we've done that, and I think we need to do that. We haven't really talked about scenic corridors, but I would love to ensure that there is a setback within scenic corridors. I know we've had the discussion. It is not written in stone as to where those setbacks are, and that those setbacks not necessarily be applicable unless it's within a greenhouse. At least currently, that's the way that we look at it. But there's no written setback, and I think there does need to be a setback. I have a farm out in north of Clear Lake that is getting closer and closer to Highway 53. It was approved as such. I tried getting some setbacks done. It kind of went to the Planning Commission, never came back to us, never got approved, never really went anywhere, but I still think it's the right thing to do. We want people to drive through Lake County not to be subjected to the smell of skunk, just like neighbors shouldn't have to be subjected to the strong stench of skunk. But still should be allowed to have those farms at least within those areas. One of them I think is set back just right. One of them, in my opinion, is a little too close. I do not want at this moment in time to change the farmland protection zone. I think that we did what we did because we already had huge issues with what we were doing. If we changed it again, we would reverse those issues in a different way and just make it bad. I do understand that if we do make some changes, there will be some non-conforming, and I think we need to figure out how to grandfather that. I also don't think that we should have a 10-year permit anymore. Do we have a 10-year permit for a bar? Do we have a 10-year permit for a hardware store? Is it something we want here, or is it not something we want here? I think we can figure that out now, especially if we're going to do an ordinance that still allows it to continue. I just don't think people should think in 10 years they're done. I think they want to invest in their properties. Let's let them invest, not let them think there's a 10-year timeline before the ticking bomb goes off. I also want to, I apologize for speaking on this, but I feel the need to. I want to review and maybe refine the revocation process. Yes, there are problems, but our goal is to get people into compliance. We have stores selling alcohol to minors. We're not shutting them down. We're finding them and we're bringing them into compliance. I don't want to see them sell things to minors, but it happens. I think that we should be treating this exactly in the same way. If you do it multiple times, revocation, absolutely. Or if you're thumbing your nose at us and you're not fixing the problem, absolutely revocation. But we need to get people to go into compliance just like we do in code enforcement, give them the time, give them the process. I feel the need to at least request for a revision of that process because I would like the applicant to be more aware of what the process is, and that way we have a criteria to go by as well. Last one is property owner and applicant background check. Property owner, 150%. Whether that needs to match the state, I don't know what makes it more difficult if to make sure that we match. When they change theirs, we have to change ours. When we change ours, they have to change theirs. I don't know how that would work for you guys as far as workload, but I think that it does make sense. But property owner needs to have skin in the game in case things go wrong, or else we get left with nothing and people can just leave and we're stuck. And yes, if you have a warrant and you're trying to get a license, you're not denied. You will be placed on hold until your warrant is cleared. I have seen things that I want to unsee, but can't because the rules were not in place. And those who have warrants for related, cannabis-related stuff, environmental crime stuff, in my opinion, those things should be placed on hold until they're cleared, not denied. So we're not making a judgment, but we have discretion to put things on hold when there's issues. And I'm sure that County Council can either correct me or give more details as to how that's possible. I'll stop right there. I'm okay with opening up for other discussions and looking at certain zones if it's appropriate or inappropriate. But in my opinion, outdoor should be more on the outskirts, more away from our community growth boundaries, and indoor mixed light should be a little closer to light industrial stuff. And I do want to open up the idea of creating, I know that creating new community growth boundaries is a difficulty, but in my opinion, without highlighting them, because they're not in my district, we have some high density population areas that are not community growth boundaries that I do worry at one point somebody will grab a 20 or 50 acre lot nearby and make that a large grow that will have impact on those communities. And I would be open to the discussion of how do we protect those areas to make sure that doesn't happen.
Supervisor Pyska?
So I agree with just about everything here. The idea of this rewrite was to refine and streamline and take our lessons learned, not restrict more, not add more exclusions. We need to support this part of our economy, and there's a lot of things that we have learned and we can improve on, for sure. I stated each and every time this came up, I have no interest in looking at farmland protection zones again. This is something that happened right before I got on the board, and my understanding was is that this was the issue between grape growers and and the pears and cannabis and the terpenes, right? Isn't that how this whole thing came about? And I think that there's a lot of confusion on what exactly we're protecting, but it was to protect those crops from each other. And if you want to speak on this, you can. But that's my understanding, and now it looks like it's being expanded to protect water. Per a comment that we received this afternoon, water is important, and it is part of this conversation that we have each and every time, and we need to get better, and we are. So, you know, the steps that CDD is taking to get better is important, and we need to continue to keep that as our goal so that we don't lose our water assets, we don't impact communities and neighbors. It's important, and it's always going to be important. It's going to be more important as time goes on. I think, so, you know, this conversation about parks and public lands, well, not all public lands are parks. Some public lands are never going to be developed. So having that clear description in our ordinance is going to be important because, frankly, there's just never going to be development in some areas of our public lands. And that shouldn't be used as a restriction. I think the bond for $5,000 is just fine. We do a lot with code enforcement when we have to do major cleanups, and it comes in around $5,000. I think $50,000 is excessive, and I don't agree with that. And I am okay with looking at the maximum acreage too. This is something that we've talked about. We've had some really big projects come in front of us. I think one of the beautiful things about our industry in Lake County, in our agriculture, is that it's very boutique-like. We have small producers, and that's special. And I think that's something that we can continue to promote, and we don't have to get bigger than we need to be. And the 5,000 square foot recommendation setback from residents, I think it's a good place to start. I'm not married to it. I think we do need to increase it. I think we've learned, and we've heard a lot of public feedback that 200 feet isn't enough at all times. So I'm willing to start there, but I'm not married to that. But I do think that we need to work on increasing that a little bit. So a staff recommendation.
5,000.
Oh, I did not mean 5,000.
Okay.
I meant
Just wanted
500.
clarification. All righty.
Sorry. Long day. No. 500, or a recommendation from staff. And looking at our revocation process, looking at how we get people back into compliance. And I also agree about the 10-year permit. What are we setting our applicants up to be doing in 10 years when everything is working great on their farm? So I think we've had enough conversations over the years that this is the direction that I would also like to go in. And I want to thank all the volunteers that spent 2.5 years coming to the task force meetings, not just the members of the public. There's been a lot that's been brought out and a lot of conversations, and it's because so many people care about this and we're willing to engage. And so I really appreciate all of the conversations that have happened and happened today and every time we talk about this.
Okay. All right. I think one of my big issues still is people that are not in compliance. For instance, the gentleman that spoke earlier today with the water issues, where they're actually hauling water in, which I believe is illegal, to provide for their grows. And I know that I believe, Moran, can you answer this about, is there yearly inspections or anything that goes on with the permittees at this moment?
Yes, we are conducting annual compliance monitoring site visits for every one of our permit applications for
Amazing.
cannabis.
Okay, and as Mr. Bill had brought up about it appears from what he had stated, the filtration system is not adequate for the size of the grow. Is there like any mitigations for something along those lines? And I did really appreciate what Supervisor Sabatier had mentioned about the projects that are closer in, having those in the greenhouses to be able to have the filtration, and the ones that are further out having those, outdoor grows. But being able to bring, for the water issues, I just don't see how they can mitigate that. So in those instances, I would say being able to pull the permits back would be important, because it is causing harm to other people. And I do know, I understand, there's more than one straw on the ground, but nevertheless, even the growers are hauling in water.
So hauling in water is prohibited. Complaints, be they either odor impacts or this guy's bringing in water, those things are considered, we take them very seriously. It's actually really helpful when it can be accompanied by a picture. Look at this guy bringing water trucks in. That helps us a lot.
I asked him.
Because when we go on an annual site monitoring visit, we're not likely to see water trucks hauling water into the grow. So we do value complaints. The more detail, the better, and we do follow up.
Perfect.
We have encountered, either on a site visit or through complaints, uses or diversions of water, or using water from sources that are not part of the permit, and we do follow up with that.
Good, yeah. That's what I was asking about, was the follow-up.
Yes.
And being able to take those, actually, this isn't waking up again, sorry.
We agree with the board's position that water supply is extremely important.
Perfect. And then an ability to cancel the ones that do not have sufficient water. But I do understand being able to bring those that are, for instance, if it's an odor issue, being able to let them come into compliance. I totally agree with that.
So it's important to note that revocations were not actually ever done before we started doing them with cannabis. And this has been, I would say, a robust learning curve, not just on the process for revocation, but also really fine-tuning where the board stands on it. So that has definitely been taken to heart. We actually do, for the most part, we have dealt with violations that just get them corrected. I have been saving revocation for what I did consider to be the last straw. I think what I'm getting from the board is I better find a few more straws before I get to that last straw. And so we do have violations, fines, things like that, and I think that we will look to apply those where possible, probably more robustly prior to making recommendations for revocation. And I think that's really helpful for the permittees to know as well, because we do take it very seriously and do not want to bring revocations to the board if we can at all avoid it.
Well, thank you. And
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going, because
No, that's
we're writing
okay.
down everything.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And I actually do think that making all of the processes, not just within cannabis, but I've had conversations with you in the past as far as the building and other things, making all of them easier for people to get through, I think is important, because I know that it's difficult for all aspects. I do need to defend our planner, Miss Monica, though. I no way I believe that she is, that there's a conflict on that. So I think that was rich. But I do think that we do need to make it easier. I just think that we need to tighten up some of the odor, the water, some of the issues, the setbacks, expanding those. So
it does seem to be like there are lots of moving parts on any given day as well. There are either state updates, the laws change, we become more informed on best practices. I think the best practices themselves in the cannabis industry are changing and updating every day as well. One of the things I'd like to make sure we bring to the attention of the board is that rolling up the sides of greenhouses is actually a standard practice in cultivation, and it's not something we had really thought about. We had thought about greenhouses as being static walls with a filtration system inside. That's not actually reality. So things change quickly.
Thank you.
Brad?
Yeah, I'll just start out with, I pretty much on the same page with all of the comments my colleagues had mentioned already that we need to look at. And I know there's going to be, this is still going to the Ag Committee, still going to the Planning Commission before it comes back here for final decisions. But having agreement with most of all that stuff, the big ones for me, I'll just mention the bigger ones. The setback definitely needs to increase. I'm not, sure how the final number should be. Definitely the 500 would be the minimum for me, if not 1,000. But
Are you speaking about from off-site
yes.
residents?
Yeah, and that would take care of the homeschool. I mean, because I don't think it's going to be really possible to try to specifically set back from homeschools. There's too much complexity with that, and something opens up as a homeschool in the middle of the whole process. So I see a lot of issues, not to mention that if we just have a more standard setback, that's going to take care of whether the kids are home for the weekend or they're at school. To me, if there's kids living in the residence, that's really, whether they're in school or just home, is the same thing to me. The water is another big one. I definitely want to make sure we're doing these hydrology studies. The water's always coming up as a critical point, and we need to take care of that. So, and then the odor impacts, I mean, I get more complaints about that than a lot of other things. So I definitely want to make sure that we can figure out a balance to where, these operations can happen while also allowing the folks in the general area not to have to, suffer those smells every day. Let's see. I think that wraps up. And I'm definitely willing to look at the acreage size too.
Can I just add scenic corridor?
Yes.
As important? Thank you. I know I mentioned it earlier.
All right, you finished?
Yeah.
All right. Wanted to just touch on retail. I know that that's something that's been brought up here and there, and I know even in the reports from the task force, the 1 to 4,000, I think, is what they recommended.
4 to 5, yeah.
Yeah, 4 to 5,000.
We briefly looked at that sort of density, but the task force actually came up with alternate recommendations, which are included in attachment 1.
Okay.
They moved away from the 1 to 4,000, 5,000, and actually just started regulating it by district, zoning district.
Okay. All right.
And increasing the permit requirement so that even in C2, we'd no longer have a retail use by right. It would be a minor or major use permit, so the public would be notified and have a chance for input on that.
Sounds
And
good.
Mr. Chair, ditto.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Yeah, because I just know that there, in my district, I have a couple that have come before the board and whatnot when it comes to changing zones and things of that nature, and then people having the by right, opportunity. And so I just want to make sure there's not 20 in one town or whatever the case may be, which, would go haywire if that took place. So just glad to see that was where it was, and thank you for redirecting me to the new recommendation. The bond, I see that you said 5,000, right? That's where it's at, or that's what we recommended where it's at? The state is?
Yeah.
The state is, and so anything more than that would be more than the state, right, if we decided. If we need to go more, which I know that the majority of the board doesn't, I'm fine with 10 or something like that, just to ensure that there's something in place in case we have to do some sort of lien or something like that. I also seen the zoning request from the public about RRs and SRs. I know there's at least 10 or so SRs. I'm willing to grandfather if we want to go that route. That way we don't, anything that we are looking to eliminate or do or change, I'm fine with grandfathering others. I don't really want to hinder or eliminate past types of things.
We have existing code in the zoning ordinance. It's really not a question of grandfathering. Typically, whenever we do have a permitted use and then change the zoning or change some sort of the regulations, it becomes what's known as a legal nonconforming use and is allowed to continue until it ceases operation for 2 years and expires.
And that leads me to what was brought up as well about the permits going with a sale. I know that that's been a big issue. I've been getting calls not just to buy the public input today, but others where they've sent me like emails with someone trying to sell their property that has a permit with it in excessive amounts and whatnot, and then coming in and assuming that they can do specific things.
Use permits follow the land by law. When there is a change of ownership, it most often is, we just write a note in the file, but specific for cannabis because we have background check requirements. When there is a change of ownership, we get the updated background checks to make sure that the new owner is qualified to operate, and then transfer the use permit actually continues with the land.
All right, and so they're informed about what they can do from that point forward, even though they might have bought it.
We do offer them the opportunity to have an hour-long meeting with staff to go over the existing conditions of approval and all of the guidelines for that particular use permit.
All right, and then conditions of use, are we including that in our annual checks? Is that one of the
Yes.
things that we're ensuring that takes place?
Yes, we do refer to their site plan, their conditions of approval before we go out for our annual compliance monitoring site visits.
Okay. Well, I mean, those are the things that I had written
We
down.
also refer, sorry to interrupt, we also refer to those conditions of approval frequently and anytime we get a complaint to make sure that the operation that the complaint is regarding is that these people, we can verify that they're operating within their conditions of approval.
All right. Anything else from anyone? Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, just one thing that I forgot, and it's a complicated one, and I think it may be solved if we reduce the maximum canopy. And I'm going to go back to Sours because that was one of the larger ones that we discussed. But what I saw was the purchase of all the surrounding land where you would never be able to farm, just so you can say I have 1,000 acres, divide that by 20, now I can have this many acres of canopy, and I'm going to put it in the only place that's possible to farm, which is where everything else is concentrated, your neighbors and all the other things. And so, in my opinion, if you can't do ag on a piece of land, you can't just add 500 acres or 200 acres. We have a lot of open space, and I just am feeling like we're being taken advantage of through a loophole of I'm going to own acreage that's never going to be used for ag, but it's going to count in my total amount of what I can do in my canopy. And so if we reduce the total canopy to 20 acres or whatever, I think that will be resolved. But I just feel like what I was seeing and what I have seen on the much larger grows is an attempt to accumulate as much land just so you can concentrate it on the one area that historically has been the only area that you have seen farming actually occur. And since it's 20-1, they look to accumulate everything they can to maximize that piece of land. So I just felt like that was a bit of a loophole. Granted, they have to spend the money for it, but it also concentrates a whole lot in an area which is very accessible to everyone else, hence having a nuisance to the neighborhood. I don't know if that's something we can deal with outside of reducing the potential maximum canopy, but it's just something that I've seen and I need to express that I feel that's taking advantage of our situation.
Go ahead.
Well,
I think if we have a maximum acreage, we're not gonna have the situation like we had at Sowers, but, I'm hesitant to put a lot more restrictions on people that are buying land to do what they want with that land.
There is benefit to, we have seen in permits benefit to clustering the land. People have purchased additional acreage so that they could cluster the grow where it would most easily and best support the actual cultivation activities. But a maximum acreage of canopy would then also cap that additional purchase of land that is not intended to be used directly for cultivation.
And I'm not looking to decrease any lower. At least, I mean, people have 1 acre, people have 5 acres. The larger type, is that type 5?
Type 5 is actually only an administrative license. It does not allow people to grow any more
No,
than.
but still, type 5 makes your life easier because it's one license rather than 50 or 60 licenses for people that have large amounts of acres.
Yeah.
I want to make your life easier, their life easier, because we shouldn't have to track so many different things. I've gone through it when we have large grows and the amount of permits that come along with it. It is a bureaucratic nightmare to track all those things, and I'd love to make sure to save you some time and some headaches by allowing for the type 5s, whatever our restrictions might be. That way, if you're over 1 acre, you can get a type 5 rather than multiple of the others.
Thank you.
All right.
If I could just seek clarity on a couple points.
Yes.
I am not seeing strong board support to change the notice of applicability deadline or date. This is it was sort of the barrier that the board put in to sort of kind of.
The water board expiration date?
Water board expiration notice of applicability date. It kind of put a cap on the number of total applications we would see, and so that the application load wouldn't overwhelm staff. I'm not seeing any strong desire to change that, but I wanted to just sort of double check because we don't really consider 30 to be an overwhelming amount of applications. We have great staff capacity that has built up over time. We could accommodate new applications should the board be amenable to that.
Go ahead.
Well, we've got the ordinance to write, and we've got 30 applications outstanding. So I think focus on those 2 things, but with the rewrite, I'm open to suggestions on what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, I kind of ditto that. I'd like to see the ordinance done. As a matter of fact, I've asked for a pause until it was done so that we were all on the same stage or same, table as far as what the new ordinance is going to be for the application. So I would say bringing that back up later might be an idea, but not until after the ordinance is complete.
That makes good sense. Those are changes that can be done easily once the board has time to consider the ordinance.
There's one more thing. I am on board with not having the applications only last 10 years. So when they've got an application, it being able to, as long as they're a good player and they're abiding, I don't see that we should have a sunset on it.
I see consensus on doing away with the 10-year limit, which is great. Because what I'd love to see eventually is these use permits be treated the same as any other type of use permit business. And so it just makes it a lot easier on staff. So that'd be great. And it's just a best management practice for planning.
I think too, because you mentioned the capacity for 30 applications that are in there, right now, that are waiting, that are pending.
That are considered complete. So those are the ones that are moving forward.
One thing I just wanted to mention earlier, and I'll just mention it now, is that with the amount of appeals that are brought towards us, that's my whole goal is to ensure that we get this ordinance intact so we can, lighten that load of appeals because they're going to continue to come regardless. So we have to make some key decisions that are going to help with that. So, Bruno?
On that, and I guess I'm asking the board rather than asking Director Turner, there are options to create a hearing officer that may simplify the process, so it doesn't have to go through Planning Commission and then come to, or whatever the case might be. Just putting it out there as a potential option, because there's quite a workload that goes along with bringing it to the Board of Supervisors versus going through a public hearing officer. It does defer our responsibility to a certain degree. I'm not sure how much I like my idea that I'm sharing with you right now, but overall, there are other ways to go through appeals, and maybe that's, I'd be willing to have that conversation.
I agree with that. It is a burden on both the Planning Commission and the board and staff and the person requesting the appeal, because it can take a really long time to get on the calendar. So I think that's something to consider.
I'm good with that too.
At least discussing it.
Yeah, looking into it and seeing if it's
I can
a more
include this.
feasible option.
Okay, let's just touch on the maximum canopy size. I'm hearing 20, I'm hearing 50, I'm hearing lower.
I thought I heard it
20.
80.
No, we have an 80.
No.
20's fine by me.
I'm okay with the recommendation. I don't.
Okay, I'll take a look at those.
I didn't have a number either. I'm good with looking at it, but
Great.
I wasn't set on anything.
Let me give Michelle and Mary a moment. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure that we do cover? No? Good? Okay. Thank you. I think we have some pretty clear direction, and we will start writing.
All right, thank you very much for that, and
Thank you, Ms. Maria.
we'll go ahead and close this item, and I think we have some consent agenda items that we haven't covered yet, so we'll go on to those. We'll start off with 5.4.
Oh, actually, I would recommend, Chair, with your permission, that since Savannah has been waiting on Zoom.
Oh, yes, sorry.
From the ROV, if we could take up 511 first.
Yes, we will. Apologize for that. So we will go on to 5.11. Well, first and foremost, thank you everyone for coming. I apologize that it got pushed back so far. We had a couple of other presentations that ran over. So, yeah.
Beautiful thing when Jim Comstock and Michael Green are walking out together.
Back to 5.11. Approve late travel claims for election technicians for the November 5th, 2024 general election, and authorize the auditor controller to process payments to be paid out of fiscal year 24-25. And we have Savannah on Zoom. Is it what?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Did I say 511? Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
511.
I read it.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Savannah Fate with the Registrar of Voters Office. We discovered these forms while going through some cleaning in our storage facilities, and we just felt the obligation to turn them in. You know, the poll workers entrust us with turning in these forms. You know, we're improving our procedures so this does not happen again. You know, we want to always improve on any you know, incidences where we're responsible. So we're just asking that we can turn these in to get these poll workers paid, because they are so essential to running the polling places. And we just want to make sure that we do our part to get them paid.
You good?
I'm good.
That's it. Okay, Supervisor Sabatier, did you?
I
then
have
you-
my pen up.
Oh, okay, well then you go first.
Well, I'm glad this got pulled, because this is important to respect our poll workers, and I'm glad this was found, but I really want to apologize to everybody that has been waiting for a reimbursement for over 6 months. So thank you for bringing it to us. Of course, I'm willing to support this even though it's late, but we do have to treat our poll workers better.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I apologize. We changed up our travel policy. It's a policy, and if we're going to make exceptions for one, we got to make exceptions for all. And at one point, I just don't know why there's a policy if we're going to make exceptions. So at this moment in time, I think it's very cold-hearted of me, but I just can't say yes to this, or else I might as well never. We might as well never see this on our agenda. Just prove them all beforehand.
All right, any other comments? All right, if not, I'll open it up for public comment. Nothing, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve late travel claims for election technicians for the November 5th, 2024 general election, and authorize the auditor controller to process payments to be paid out of fiscal year 24-25.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you very much, Savannah.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
All right. All right, so that takes care of that one. 5.4?
Four.
All right. All right, we have approve amendment between County of Lake and Clifton Larson Allen LLP for accounting and advisory services, an increase of $50,000 total compensation not to exceed $150,000 and authorized chair to sign. This is the auditors. Is this going to be pushed to a later date?
Yes, she made a request. She's not, oh, God, I can't talk, unavailable this afternoon. So we'd like to move it to 7:15 with the department's support.
All right. Any comments on this? I'll open it up for public comment. Not hearing any, I'll bring it back to the board and we'll look at this on July 15th. All right. And then so now we will go on to did we do 513?
We did, but you may wish to just restate it that it's going to come back at a later date to be determined.
All right, so 5.13 approved the agreement between County of Lake and Clean Lakes Incorporated for the Aquatic Vegetation Management Program for fiscal year 24-25, not to exceed an amount of $271,210 and authorize the chair to sign. It's water resources subject or item, and we will be bringing it back at a later date as well. Did we have a date again? No?
No, to be determined.
To be determined, there we go.
That was, 513 was actually part of water resources and part ag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a double there. All right, with that, that covers those, and now we just have calendars.
No,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. What did I forget?
8.2.
Oh.
8.2.
I thought I came out of closing.
And
with
Mr.
that,
Chair,
did not.
if
Go
I
ahead,
may.
Lloyd.
Go ahead.
Going back to 5.13, if you could just take public comment on that since it's been
Thank you.
waited just in case.
All right, so
Spit out a word.
5.13. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. We will address that at a later date to be determined. Back to 8. We'll now go back to closed session. Item 8.2, public employee evaluation, Water Resources Director, which will take place on July 22nd.
I am going to rethink that, given the fact that we continued our other closed session item
be determined.
today. Yes, and I will talk to the director tomorrow.
All right, so that'll be
Availability.
to be determined then.
Yes, sir.
So it's not the 22nd.
Yes, sir.
All right. So with that, now we will go to calendars.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go to the Vista Point groundbreaking tomorrow morning and then pick up my county car and go to NACO for the week.
All right.
I'll go ahead and follow that one up.
Supervisor Sabatier.
I will be going to NACO in Philadelphia for the week. I'm leaving tomorrow in the morning and coming back Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the morning so I can make sure and make our meeting on the 15th. So expect me with a lot of coffee.
So I'll do the Potter Valley tomorrow. I'll be doing that solo. All right.
Sorry, I've been missing a lot of Potter Valley meetings.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're good. Any
Let him go because I'm
Vice Chair?
still trying to find mine.
Yeah, well, I had 2 pages, but I'm going to cut it for in interest of time. But yes, I'll be at the groundbreaking tomorrow for the brick breaking. I'm sorry, for the tribal health facility.
The brick breaking.
On Thursday evening, I'm going to go to the event for the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument anniversary. And I'm planning on going to the, I believe it's this week, the State Park General Plan meeting. No, it might be next week. And I'll be at the judge's breakfast Thursday, and then Animal Control Advisory meeting Thursday, as well as Behavioral Health meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I finally found it. So tomorrow, I have a meeting at 10:30 at Harbor Hot Springs for a tour. We have at noon, I have the tourism hospitality meeting here in Lakeport, and then Lake County Rodeo Board. I think Brad and I are meeting with them at 2:30 tomorrow. And I think, seems like I'm missing something in there. Thursday, I have a meeting at 10 a.m. here with Miss Susan Parks. At 4, I have the Recreation Agency meeting. And then at 6, I have the math meeting in Middletown. Friday and Saturday evenings, we'd like to invite everybody out to the Lake County Rodeo. It's this weekend here in Lakeport at the fairgrounds again. And it starts at 6:30 with the mutton bustin'. And then I think the regular rodeo starts at 7 or 7:30. And I think that's it for this week.
All right. So I will start out with, tomorrow I have the Potter Valley catch-up meeting with our group. And Brad, you said that the Berryessa is Thursday, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
At 5 p.m.
And then, so we'll be going to that for sure. But during the day, wanted to make sure, I know you won't be there, is the risk reduction DEI training that day, or is it Friday? I have it on both for some reason.
I don't know, I just took it off my calendar.
All right, so I'll just,
Ask Terry.
I'll plan for both. How about that? But either way, I also have another, what's that? It's Friday? So it's not Thursday?
It's on my calendar.
Well, good, because I would have a conflict.
Well, I would have a conflict too with her.
So yeah, then I can do my, I have a constituent meeting Thursday with Lars, so I'll be doing that Thursday, and the, what is it, the DEI training for the Risk Reduction Authority. I don't know why they gave me a NACO calendar invite for finance pensions or something like that, but it's, if anything, if it's on Zoom, maybe I'll join that. And then Monday, we have the SLR Lake County call to review, and then the Central Region Town Hall meeting back here Tuesday. With that, I also just briefly, there was 2 fires in my district. Just want to, luckily they were put out. I wanted to give a thanks to the CAL FIRE and the North Shore Fire Department. They dealt with it really quick. Just wanted to give everyone, if you're still watching, please make sure you follow the guidelines when it comes to weed eating or anything of the like in that capacity, and let's start clearing vegetation if you haven't already. So, don't know if there's anything else that I missed. Anything else anybody else doesn't want to? Nope. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn, and we will see you next week. Thank you for staying with us and tuning in with us. All right. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even do it. I got it. There.